introducing Karen Stefaniak, right here on my left. Karen is my client, and we are doing a project at the University of Kentucky called Nursing Excellence the UK Way. And the one thing I have to tell you about this, which is most interesting, I think, is how Karen found me was on the AI Commons. So if you know about the AI Commons at Case Western, she learned about appreciative inquiry at a meeting, a professional meeting. She got interested in it. Then she was selected for a Robert Wood Johnson Fellowship and began to think about a project that she would do with her nursing department of 1,600 nurses at the University of Kentucky Hospital. So she started on the web, as she is quite proficient, to look for an appreciative inquiry consultant. And I had posted some of my material of work in nursing on the AI Commons. So I did that with the intent of sharing it with colleagues. I didn't expect that I would get calls from prospects, and that's what happened. So that was August 4th, 2003, and we are now in the middle of a pretty major inquiry, which Karen will tell you about. So that's Karen. Do you want?
I'll introduce Rodrigo again. I mentioned Rodrigo yesterday in the story where he just decided to shut down the entire factory and the whole Nutrimental foods and bring everybody together. Just a remarkable leader, remarkable sense of where the whole field of leadership and management is going. Since his work with his leadership as CEO and founder of Nutrimental, he's been invited to many different levels of leadership now in society. President Lula's Social and Economic Council, and then most recently appointed president of FEAPE, which is an association of about 8,000 businesses. And he provides, it's like a campus. It's huge. It's like a major university to provide leadership, education, and so on for the 8,000 businesses. Just a remarkable human being. When we developed the United Religions Initiative with 250 centers around the world to foster dialogue between different faiths, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, and so on, he and his team from Nutrimental came to help facilitate those sessions throughout Brazil and South America. So anyway, just a great, great person, and look forward to the stories. And Bob Stiller, many of you know, was and also just quite an extraordinary leader in the whole corporate social responsibility field. And he'll go into that, I'm sure, in terms of what they're doing around the world and fair trade leadership for coffee growers that live in economies that are very fragile with price changes. Whole communities can be wiped out. So his work in that area has been pioneering. You might have seen him featured on Frontline, a major documentary that was done on their organization, Green Mountain's work. He's Forbes Entrepreneur of the Year a couple years ago, named as one of the top 200 fastest growing companies in America. And it's just been a real honor to get to know Bob. And I hope he speaks a little bit about it too. His whole emphasis on self-development and consciousness and meditation and things like that. And then Bob Stahl, a colleague, a great leader from president of Roadway Express. Roadway is one of the largest trucking companies in America. So we shared a little bit about that yesterday. Bob is, if you've read the book by Collins called Good to Great, I would call Bob a level 5 leader. And he defines a level 5 leader as, his stunning finding in the leadership studies that he did, or the major studies that he did on going from good to great, is that the companies that go from good to great, it's not at all what we think about this myth of the great kind of charismatic TV personality kind of leader, but it's someone who is capable of bringing out that leadership in everybody around them. And it's just been stunning to watch Bob in the midst of a crowd of 500 people, and the kind of leadership that happens in the room The level 5 leadership is described as great humility, but tremendous determination and will. And it's a tough industry that he's in, and comes from a real financial background. Prior to his presidency, spent time focusing on just acquisitions and mergers and major new business opportunities, but is now creating a corporate turnaround in terms of building a culture with leadership at every level. And it's just been a privilege to know each of you and to work with you.
Karen?
Are we ready?
We're ready. And I'm back here doing this because the remote got burned out, and so the remote is me. So
And she also tells us that we each have 12 minutes.
Thank
So 12. So she's going to let us know about that.
okay.
Okay. Go ahead. Let's move right on along here. Just let me tell you just a minute what we have in Lexington, Kentucky, so you'll know what I was working with. First of all, we are a university, and the hospital is very much a part of the university and a medical center. We have 473 beds, which means we're about a moderate-sized facility. We're obviously a referral center, level 1 trauma center, provide quaternary care. And the last bullet says 1,600 magnet nurses. That's important. What that means is we've been given a designation. There are only, at this time, there were only 38 nursing services out of 6,000 that exist in the United States that had been awarded this status. And what that means, and it's important for you to understand this as we move along here, is that the nurses have a pretty wonderful environment to work in so that they can truly do good work. And that's what this is all about, even though there are standards upon standards upon standards. Bottom line, we just allow nurses to do good work and facilitate that. Okay, so why did I get involved in this AI thing? Well, I did hear about it, fell in love with it immediately. And then, as it happens, I was awarded the Robert Wood Johnson Fellowship. Part of the responsibility of that is to conduct a project of which they pay. So I really wanted to make a difference in my organization, but let's remember, we really weren't broken, okay? Number 2 says the nursing shortage. Well, I think probably everyone in the room knows there's such a thing as an international nursing shortage. Frankly, at UK, we didn't have much of one, but I wanted to make sure that we didn't. We had around a 4 to 6% vacancy rate when the national average was anywhere from 14 to 20. So we were doing pretty well. But I didn't want mediocrity, as Susan always points out to me that I told her when I called her on the phone. Perception is reality. Now, what's that all about? Well, even though I'm telling you what a great place UK is, the nurses didn't seem to understand that. You know, sometimes we leaders just don't quite know what's going on. So as it happens, even though these people are self-governed, they make their own schedules, we close beds to make sure we have adequate numbers of nursing, and you money people know what that must mean in terms of loss of revenue and making people rather angry. All these wonderful things that were there, the nurses didn't seem very happy to me. And when I would see them leaving work, they did not at all seem happy. So I wanted to fix that. And then apathy. I just felt like we were happy with mediocrity, and I wasn't. So it seemed AI was perfect. So what were our goals? Well, first of all, what we wanted to do is we wanted the nurses to learn AI so they could use it in their various activities. We wanted to change or reframe the UK way. That's why the title is Nursing Excellence the UK Way. In our organization, and actually all over the university, UK way means bureaucracy, things move slow, you don't have what you need when you need it, and that's not what a university should mean, and that's not what a magnet nursing organization should mean. So we wanted to reframe that. And we wanted to give nurses time to tell stories and to listen, because I knew the apathy would just disappear if they had time to appreciate each other. Our goals, of course, we had to have something to measure. Robert Wood Johnson told me I did. Improve nurse retention, increase nurse recruitment, improve nurse satisfaction, improve patient satisfaction, and improve manager satisfaction. And we already had baselines for those pieces of data. Okay. The process, well, after I did some pre-work and introduced the AI to many of the nursing leaders, I thought, I need help. I really don't know how to do this. So I found Susan, as she explained on the internet. She immediately, I hired her on the phone, by the way, sight unseen. I liked her a lot. I still do. It's wonderful to have someone that cares so much, and she's not a nurse, about something that I'm so passionate about. So we've been quite a team, I think. She immediately carted me off and one of my colleagues to Taos to hear Diana and Jim, so we learned quite a bit in that week. We developed a core team, of course. We followed the whole process that is described in the books. Our core team is made up of staff nurses, 30. Susan had told me that one of the problems she had run into with other clients is that everybody, especially management, wants to be, they want to know what's going on. So we developed something a little different that's not in the books. In addition to a core team, we had AI partners. And those were members of my leadership team that really helped learn the process and then teach the core team. And then, of course, we developed a timeline, which is, we need to move, okay. 12 minutes, remember. Okay. In November is when we really started, and with the pre-discovery, of course, was the core team and that sort of thing. And then the discovery method or portion of this has been the storytelling. We are still in the process of that. And if you want to, you moved on, thank you, Susan. That's okay. The selected topics that the core team came up with, what we were going to study for the next year, the art of nursing. And by the way, there are slides in the book, copies of the slides if you want to look at them later. I'm not going to read all of these, but I do want to read the first one, and it's because I think it is quite poetic, and a group of staff nurses that I see taking care of patients, I don't think they think of themselves like this usually. They said to them that nursing care is an art at its very best. What we do with our minds, hearts, and hands is truly beautiful. We paint with brushstrokes of compassion, weave tapestries of comfort, and sculpt an environment of caring beyond technology for our patients, their families, and often for one another. At UK, this is the art of nursing. Isn't that lovely? I think it's lovely. They also wanted to study teamwork. And number 3, they wanted to study magnet nursing. Do you know, I found out during this core team inquiry that the nurses did not know or care or seem to realize that they're special and that they're magnet nurses. And the reason is because what we do every day, we wrote down, we sent to the people that grant you this status. They visited us, but the nurses felt like this was business as usual. They didn't, that was the apathy. They didn't understand how good they really are. So we felt like we needed to study magnet nursing. And they, as you can see, they defined it in the following way. Okay, let's go on. They also wanted to talk about celebrating, because we don't take time to do that. And they also wanted to study humor, because they said laughter sometimes is the best medicine. Humor allows us to deal with sad situations, job stress, and enables us to relax and enjoy our patients, their families, and each other. And one of the themes that has come out with each of the inquiries is that they do want to understand, appreciate, and support each other. That comes out each and every time. That's important because in nursing we often talk about how we eat our young. It's in the literature, and the nurses at UK want to change that. Second phase, the summit. We are planning that now. As a matter of fact, we're holding 2 summit meetings in October. We can't just close down the place because we have to take care of patients. We want to take care of patients. That's what we do. So we're going to have several summits, and then we'll probably have a summit of summits in January. And those are being planned right now. Participation, so far we've had around 400 nurses participate in the inquiries, the workshops. Each is 3 hours long. Getting nurses away from the bedside with all the demands of patient care is quite a challenge. We also included stakeholders, and we are in our core team, and we're interviewing stakeholders. We've had a lot of interest. We've had a lot of physicians, the leadership group, the magnet people. I'm presenting at a magnet conference. The dean of the dental school, very interested, wants to know more about it. And each and every time I talk about it, the one person in the audience that has the most questions is the dean of the medical school. So I have a feeling I'm going to be hearing from him. Outcome measures, well, obviously we're not finished, and I think that's an important statement. I don't want us to ever be finished. This is a project that had a beginning, but in my mind, it will have no end. But we will look at our numbers that existed before, and then we will measure them on a regular basis. I did want to see about the nursing vacancies and see where we are. And we were, when we started, about a 6% vacancy rate, and we're now at 4%. The turnover was 10%, and now it's 8%. And we have not redone the last 3 measures yet. Some of the nurses' comments. They tell us that these inquiries, they've brought back pride. They've rediscovered the joy of nursing. The strongest thing at UK is teamwork. Almost every story talks about teamwork. This is great. I know I'm going to survive. That was from a brand new nurse who really had had a rough day. New understanding of one another. Negativity sucks the life out of us. Same care in different parts of the hospital, just at different times and different places. Wow. Nursing services is very special. Nice to live outside my area. The experience has been a big boost. I may be able to deal more effectively with negative people now. This needs to go on indefinitely, and it stimulated me to come up with new ideas to brighten my patients' days. So they found ways that this was going to facilitate caring for patients. And of course, I have pages and pages and pages of these. Now, the challenge is being AI. As I said, I don't want this to end. I want to see nurses smile as they go about their daily work. Obviously, I want to have all the nurses we need. I want the quality that we need. It is more important to mention that not having nurses is a huge issue in terms of quality. It's a huge issue in terms of money. The literature tells us that it costs $45,000 to $65,000 each time a nurse turns over. So if we need a financial case, Robert Wood Johnson told me I did. So I did one, and it was quite elaborate. However, I think that one fact tells the story. If I could prevent one nurse from leaving, I saved $45,000 to $65,000. I think that's incredible. Okay, we have a few pictures of some of the murals, just so you can see some of their artwork. Just flip through those, and we'll see if there's any. Wait, we're going to stop on this one just for 1 minute. I do want to tell you, if I've got time, a couple stories. The picture there with the cross, it's a whirlpool tub there. These are the kinds of stories nurses told me. We had a patient, had cancer, was in our Markey Cancer Center. The patient wanted to be baptized. The faith of this patient suggested that the baptism had to be by immersion. So the nurse packed up the patient, got some of her colleagues, took them over to the hospital, which is another building, put them in the burn tub. They had the minister there, put them in the burn tub, and the patient was indeed baptized. Those stories, those kinds of things aren't in books. They don't tell there's no procedure for that kind of thing. There's no policy for that kind of thing. It's just that nurses do these things because they're the right things to do. And by sharing those things with each other, they actually had time to just sit back and say, aren't we wonderful? And I think I'm going to be saving that one nurse and a lot more. Okay, flip through. Just some of their artwork. You can see teamwork come through. The metaphors mostly talk about teamwork. This line is, these are not patients necessarily, although they did say they wanted us to have all the patients that we could handle, but these are nurses waiting in line to get a job at UK. Go ahead, you can just flip through those. Go back to that other one. Sorry. That one I think is really interesting in terms of the AI because the center there is nursing, and it talks about the spirit and positivity and then the ripple effects as it reaches out to their colleagues, to all members of the team, and to the community, the patients, the families. The UK way. Now, I'll just tell you one more story if I've got time. Do I have time? Okay. This one is a patient. I'll read this. A patient was a young mother of 5. She had terminal ovarian cancer. Her dearest wish was to see her oldest child graduate, but she knew she was not going to be able to do that or see her others graduate. She approached the doctor, the nurse did, and said, we need to somehow facilitate this. So they went to the school. They arranged where, now this woman was in bed with all sorts of pumps, equipment, ventilator, just everything. Found a place where the graduation was being held, where they could take the patient and all her equipment. Now, the nurse did this all on her own time. Then, at the time of the graduation, the nurse accompanied the patient with all of her tubes and everything to the graduation. And this patient saw her child graduate. She died 48 hours later. That's not in any procedure book, and it's not a policy. It's doing the right thing, and it's doing it as if, well, of course, that's what you do. I don't need any thanks. I just do this. So that's our story at UK, and this is nursing.
You did great. Okay. You did fine. And you can see what a pleasure it is to work on a project like this. It's a very life-giving project. Now, the one thing I want to say is we're going to keep going through these because we want to kind of get it all out. But make notes to yourself because I'm sure you have questions, and we will get there. So, Rodrigo.
It's my time?
Yeah.
Well, and many of you know me through Nutrimental, and since 3 years ago, I'm out of the running the business. The business is being running by our people, and 2 weeks ago, I became very realized when I read a newsletter from Nutrimental, because I go there once a year and receive some reports and so on. When I saw that this company had made an AI summit, working out the learning, planning, and action upon the issue of getting improvement in productivity. And this was involved most of half the company in a volunteer way. and in a self-organized and self-managed way, involving more than 60 teamworks, because our company now is based, it's a team-based organization. It's an organization based in process, not function, not bureaucratic. And our company in 5 years, we had 6 times more EBITDA, you call that EBITDA. It's profit, operational profits. 6 times more without adding new capital or growing in product line, because we came from a condition in the beginning in '97. We, as most of the Brazilian local companies, were victims of the globalization and the transformations. Most than 80% of the Brazilian companies were broken or sold through this process. And we had to find out a new kind of business. We used to be a service company, and we had to move to a customer-oriented business. And we had to learn new technologies, to develop a new culture, and so on. And we didn't have money, neither credit to finance all the changes. Our only asset were people. And the challenge were that we had to learn and to change in high speed, and keeping alive and being able to make all the transformations. And so that's why when David told me, Rodrigo, I go to Brazil if you put the whole system in the room, I immediately agree, because when I met Willis Harman in 94, one of the things that I learned from Willis Harman is the essentiality, that the fundamental change occurs when the whole is in process. And so when David asked me if that I had to put the whole system in the room, in the process, I immediately agreed. It was necessary to make planning for that. It's just invite people to come. Well, many extraordinary things happen in our company. For instance, we changed our informatic platform from mainframe to AS400, a new platform, in 6 months. And as well as we implemented the ABC, the activity-based cost, in our organization, also in 5 or 6 months, when most of the company, no more than 20 or 30% of the companies are able to make this change in 2 years. We did that in 5 months. That's why, because we become a living system, a learning organization, and where people cooperate and have a clear understanding, and that Jack Stravos put with very clearly, in a clear form, the importance of resources, incentives, action plan, and shared vision, to combine these elements in order to allow that people really can produce results, extraordinary results. So, Nutrimental is doing very well, is doing better without me than. And it was a big satisfaction for me, saw that the company, that this vision of philosophy, AI philosophy, as well as the learning organization concepts, is a property of the whole, not of the leader. Well, now, today, we are having an experience so exciting as I did in Nutrimental. Now, I am at head, the president of this association. It's a huge association involving thousands of industries. And we had many schools, technological schools, business schools, and we represent the interest of the industry in relation with the government, the social society, and we are part of a national system involving federation in every state. It's the kind of the industry is organized in Brazil. So we are very influenced, joined with the government, with all. It's a very powerful institution. And our institution, when I assumed it, was 1 year ago, exactly in October 1st. At that time, if we could compare our federation with the other Brazilian federations, we were by far at the one of the worst positions, because during more than 10 years, this federation was managed in a command control and very centralized way, with the fear as the way for keeping control the systems and so on, corruption, many, and really the outcome of our system were very bad in relationship with the other states. 1 year later, probably we are at the front head, competing with São Paulo and Rio Grande do Sul as one. And what happens? It's because we brought all the people. We allow all the people to participate in the process of restructure the system. And so I will show a video that can show how it was done.
In October of 2003, a large cooperation network began to take shape in Brazil. It was a South American extension of a global project launched by American entrepreneurs after the 2001 terrorist attacks in the United States. BAWB, the English acronym for Business as an Agent for World Benefit, urges the business community to rethink organizations so that more than just productive and profitable entities, they will also become social development drivers. The event was organized by the Paraná Development Institute and held at the premises of FIEP, the Industrial Federation of the State of Paraná in Curitiba. 600 entrepreneurs, economists, consultants, students, and university professors embraced the idea.
I found that this event met my personal, collective, and professional aspirations, and the way that it greatly my role as an agent for a better world.
I feel great.
The American economist and futurist Hazel Henderson, author of the Theory on New Economic, Social, and Quality of Life Indicators, encouraged the Brazilian audience by pointing out areas in which Brazil is in the lead. Evolution biologist Elizabeth Sartoris said that Brazilians have much to teach the other countries.
I really believe that Brazilians are naturally cooperative and very, very creative in cooperative ways. So this means that Brazil has a huge job to do in the world.
Concern for environmental, economic and social challenges mobilised those participating in the meeting. Working in smaller groups, they drafted projects and action plans to meet the proposed goals. We are going to get together next Saturday with the idea of creating an organisation which seeks to sustain and support those entities that are already working. In March 2004, the Industrial Federation of Paraná assembled 2,500 people in a series of regional meetings that included the participation of collaborators, entrepreneurs, professors, investigators, students and public authorities. The first shared plannings meeting's proposal was to come up with suggestions on how to improve the services delivered by FIEP for economic and social development in Paraná. Our vision is to have a dynamic and participatory administration based on dialogue with the higher purpose of strengthening and developing the state of Paraná's several industrial segments. The shared planning initiative was carried out in 6 cities in Paraná state: Londrina, Maringá, Ponta Grossa, Pato Branco, Cascavel and Curitiba. The appreciative inquiry methodology resulted in involvement and active participation. In every city, people forwarded proposals and organised work plans for the FIEP system to become a centre of excellence in innovation, sustainable industrial development and human resources management. New and innovative proposals have already begun to be put into practice.
It's provocative, it's daring, and it's possible.
The proposals were combined into 11 themes: continuing education for professionals, customer interaction, higher value placed on human resources, service excellence, self-sustainability, sustainable industrial development, homogeneous infrastructure and high business performance, social responsibility, transparent communication and effective marketing, technology and innovation, and partnerships geared towards business development in the state of Paraná. These proposals will guide FIEP's actions in the years ahead.
People are working, engaged in different projects, and they're engaged in projects that make sense to themselves. In other words, I'm doing what I want to do, what I think is important for the future of the organization.
Well, this the first meeting, the BAWB meeting, was made just when I assumed in October, and through this event of Business as Agent of World Benefit, we create a mood, a basic environment to get the acceptance both from the industrials and also from the people who works in the system, in order they accept to be involved in a planning process in a participative way. And so the BAWB create conditions for when we start the participative process, shared process, shared planning and management of the system. People were prepared for understanding and being productivity in this process. Since March, we had many others meetings, sectorial meetings, the clothes industry or the automotive industries, specific meetings, as well as meeting like with the doctors, the PhDs living in Paraná, meeting that then they create an academy for sustainable development and using a AI process, as well as a program bring together university and business people for technology innovation and strategic cooperation, as well as 4 clusters, small cities where there are many like specialties. So we are using intensively and extensively the methodology for fostering and facilitating the creation of a new ways of organization for sectors of the system. Next month, we are organizing, we will implement a program of involving the key stakeholders of the Paraná states for creating a vision of future of the Paraná, involving the media, industry, government, and social, also using the appreciative inquiry. So we are spreading this concept of a new way of making planning, and the acceptance is being very well. And we see our whole as providing a shared infrastructure for supporting the evolution, giving freedom for supporting the evolution of new initiatives coherent with this process. And that in always we are keeping in mind this concern with guarantee this perspective of the whole. And something that I'd like to share with you, it's about my perception that appreciative inquiry has to do with deliberative democracy. It's some kind different of representative democracy, that we are seeing that in the representative democracy, some people get the mandate, but they use the mandate not necessarily for serving the whole. And this issue of deliberative democracy is something that it's necessary for the evolution of the organization. So the appreciative inquiry allows that it can happen naturally. Surely it's necessary to provide the proper formats to give support for this process. But basically, it's important to allow that everyone in the organizations can participate in the construction of the destiny of the organization or the community or the society. And so through this way, I think that we can in any way to influence changes also in the political system or at the political behavior.
Bob? Thank you.
Just to frame, I think we're probably the smallest organization up here. We have around 600 employees. We've been in business for maybe 23 years. We've been using the AI processes in various concepts and ways for maybe like 4 years, or I don't know, maybe it's 5. And I really got into it. I was working with Eileen Wasserman for a number of years in organizational development, and she said, you just got to do this training. And I said, why? You just got to do it. And went down with a number of our senior leadership team to do a little mini summit or training, and really could not believe the energy and the creativity and the engagement that the process brings. And we applied that to some process improvement techniques. We have done a summit. Our largest was around 200 people. About 150, 60 were within the organization. And, it was so fascinating to see these like machine operators or these, route drivers, like, what do they want me here for? I'm not going to say anything. And I'm afraid to say anything. If I say anything, what's going to happen to me? And like a day into the summit, or it was the second day, there was a line of 25 to 30 people waiting to get up in front of these 200 people with microphones. These people have never spoken before. And they were getting up to pitch a project that they had passion around. And they were trying to sell this to the group so they would get more people to join them. But, these people were like afraid to speak, and here they are waiting online. I mean, this was like the energy, just really needs to be experienced. And, I really wasn't going to get into some of the SR work and other stuff that David mentioned in the beginning, but it's all in the same theme of wholeness and how powerful that is. We have sent over 20% of our employees to farms just to experience, and see what the living conditions are in these coffee communities. And I've had people that have worked for years for us and will say, this is the best stuff. They'll hear coffee farmers speak, they'll see videos, they, read the literature. This is fabulous. And they'll go to these coffee farms and they'll say, my God, I never understood. We had a recent partnership that we started with Heifer maybe a year or two ago, and they were interviewing, some of the people that had gone in previous years. And this one guy, he was like sort of stoic and, seemed like sort of hard. And he started sharing how it had changed his life. This is like a trip 2 years ago. And tears were rolling down his face. These employees come back so much more motivated. We do a lot of volunteer work in the local communities. And it really, I think, adds that sense of wholeness and fulfillment to the people involved in the organization. And, it's one of those things that really, needs to be experienced. I think over the years, I've tried a number of things to move the organization. I mean, it was very easy when we were starting up because survival can be very compelling. But when you're doing okay, why do, more? I mean, it's a hard space to be in. And I've always felt that having a greater good, just so much more meaningful to people, because we realize that if you're not successful, you're not going to do any good. And really, people get very engaged and really go the extra mile having that as a mission. I mean, that's when the great things have gotten done, is when people have a compelling vision. And I think that greater good, provides that, for an organization. But a lot of this, again, ties back to the whole appreciative approach, because if you ask the right questions, these issues do flush out, and people realize that helping others, is so meaningful to them. At some level, I think any peak experience can get back to that working with other people, coaching, developing. It's like, it's part of our human makeup to help each other. But often we don't see the need. Whenever someone is directly in need, people are there. But so often in other countries and other situations, we don't understand what that need is. And, the process, I think, really can flush out and develop that. David also mentioned the spiritual stuff, which we have been doing. We've been doing Active Mind. We've been doing the Silva training for a number of years, because in a 3-day period, it really can give you the experience of, let's say, a week or more of a more mindful-based approach. But we are actually presently doing a research project with a couple colleges on the effect of meditation in the workplace. But again, through those disciplines, you get another level of wholeness and connectedness through those disciplines. And again, you will appreciate more and you will do more with that tool and focus. So, getting maybe to the business sense, there is so many things for the process to be applied to. I think years ago, I realized that, yes, we want to have the best coffee, we want to have the best services. These are really what differentiates us in the marketplace. But at the end of the day, our competitive advantage is really how well we execute. Because people are always copying, what you do. The marketplace is always evolving. So your ability really to engage the people, in the organization, to focus them, to motivate them, that, to me, is what business is all about. You can take any business, but it's a question of engaging.
That's true.
Engaging the people and focusing on what the business has to get done. And, the more people you can get in, the more creative it is. Years ago, I used to think, gee, I know what needs to be done, and I'm a creative guy. And I would share some of the stories and some of the projects with somebody, and then they'd start making suggestions, and it always got better. But to engage them, up front with the process has been, very rewarding, for us. We could speak to, we just actually had one that was about a week ago. We opened up a new distribution center. It was about 55,000 square feet. It has the latest technology. It's all pick to light. And we finished it about 6 months ahead of our projected timeline. But we worked with Diamond Phoenix, who was one of the software providers. And they were very skeptical and shared this, coming into working with us, because we said, we want the people that are doing the work to help design the workstations and help design, the workflow. And they were like, well, gee, that's nice, but, we have a timeline. And if we involve all these people, we're not going to get these things done. And they normally take 9 to 12 months longer than we did this job with them. And not only did we do it faster, we designed more throughput through the footprint of the facility than they had ever done before. And one of the material handling magazines might have us as actually the warehouse of the year because of this project. But the same has happened elsewhere. We use PeopleSoft. We have been one of their top referral sites for a number of years. Our CIO, was elected one of the CIOs of the year. We are on the business ethics, top 100. Last year we were, or the year before we were 8. This last year we were 5. We were just voted number 9 as the best places to work in the country for a medium-sized, company. But this is really just byproducts of, how effective I think the process is in engaging, people in the organization. And I don't know exactly, one of the questions was, how do you sustain it or something? And it's one of the fascinating things is almost to sort of keep management out of the picture. I mean, you have some that are very supportive, but you really got to be very careful because there is so much energy within the organization that, the management can very easily become roadblocks. And we had actually at one of our summits, we had a number of initiatives. And because of that, actually they said, we want more values and operating principles of how we can work and should be working within the organization. So we actually did another summit on that and developed that and had a couple hundred people sort of create the rules that we could use in the organization. And if there are some issues with that, we have a team from our ownership committee that will look at that and communicate if somebody's afraid that, they can't, speak up. So you can say they found a way around the roadblocks themselves. But it's, been a great process, and, I just can do whatever I think can be done to spread the word is such great work, and, it seems to be happening. So thank you, and thank you all for making that.
Thanks, Susan. You put up a next slide for me. Thanks. Just a few overheads here. First, I won't have a chance to do this other than tonight, and that is to publicly thank Dave for inviting us and including Roadway in this Appreciative Inquiry Conference. It's an honor for us to be here and not only learn, but to tell our story too, and hear the stories of these other companies and other organizations here. So we appreciate being here. Thank you. Always a friend of Roadway, Dave. And since he always does it to me, I always try to embarrass him publicly too, so I never succeed though. I would like to just take a little bit and tell a story about Roadway and our journey was the slide that we talked about, or that we had prior to this, and how Appreciative Inquiry is a catalyst in that journey. So that's really just a few, the theme I want to hit on here. First, I'd like to give you just a little profile of Roadway Express. I used to think if you weren't in the shipping business that you wouldn't know anything about Roadway Express. But now I'm beginning to understand that if you know a little bit about Appreciative Inquiry, you've heard of Roadway too. Dave's convinced me of that finally. I like that. That's a good thing. But who are we? Roadway Express has been in business for almost 75 years. Next year will be the 75th year that Roadway Express has been hauling freight across North America for hundreds of thousands of customers. And there's a lot of tradition in that, and many people over the years that have worked in that company and passed down that tradition. So it's a long-standing, proud company, and $3 billion in revenue, you see on the slide there, and almost 25,000 people across America. One interesting piece that I will hit on later, in the last year, Roadway was acquired. We were a public company and bought by Yellow Corporation. So that's a new twist in our history that I'll provide a little comment on here in just a minute. But those 25,000 skilled professionals really gets at what our strategy is, and that is the engagement of those 25,000 people and the success of each other and the success of the company is our main strategy. And why? Because we think that can give us a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Bob talked about execution. Well, 25,000 people, we like to say, who think and act like an owner of the business can out-execute anyone, anywhere. And that's important for us. That really is our vision, that engagement of 25,000 people. A brief note there that we have 350 facilities across America, so we're very decentralized, ranging from facilities in small-town America with 4 or 5 employees to hubs with 1,500 employees. So we've got an issue that we'll talk about in my presentation, that decentralized environment that people all over the country has its challenges, and we have to work through that. Susan, if you could. This is one of two things. It either points out that we haul freight all across America in many point-to-point combinations, or I have a marketing department run amok. I'm not really sure which it is. I'll find out later, though. You should go to the next one. Thanks. Critical parts of our engagement journey. I thought I would give you some key highlights. There's 6 bullet points that kind of talk of a progression of engagement at Roadway, that story of where we are. The first one talks about executive education. 5 years ago, we first learned about appreciative inquiry from Dave at Case Western. We had been going there for years, where the leaders of Roadway went to Case Western to learn about new leadership strategies, new market strategies, how to out-execute the competition in the tough business we're in. Always looking for what are the best answers to help our people to accomplish this. Well, we came across, as we pondered this journey of engagement, this model of engaging 25,000 people, we knew we needed something very sound. We needed a strategy. We needed an energizer. We needed sound science, if you will, that could guide those efforts. And lo and behold, we came across one, appreciative inquiry. Probably a little newer then. I'm not sure of exactly when this appreciative inquiry was invented. I should know the date. But we came across that and realized this fit our vision of engagement, that there was something there. We had to take a leap of faith to a degree that this would work, and we did. Lucky for us, it was the right leap, but we had to take measure of that and go forward. So that leadership buy-in was essential. We had to have the leaders of the company buy into our engagement vision. We had to have them buy into appreciative inquiry as the methodology to unleash that. The next step, while we're learning about appreciative inquiry, was to create our model of engagement. You see some initials on the slide that says EEFB. That means nothing to you unless you're one of 25,000 people that work at Roadway. But that stands for engagement through education in the fundamentals of business, our business. That's our words for a high-performance work system. That's our words for employee empowerment. That's our words for employee development. That's our words for a learning organization. So we had to create that model. We had to create that from the ground up that fit us. And a lesson that I would talk to anyone about, that when you go into this type of strategy, you have to create your vision, your model, your positive core, and use appreciative inquiry to bring that out. So we created that model. Partly behind that model was also developing a very strong and powerful organizational development group to help teach and to help people learn. Sitting here with me tonight is our Vice President of Organizational Development, Cindy Frick. I know she's conducted a few sessions here today. That's a part of this journey, that organizational development group. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be able to take a risk. You have to go into new frontiers, or you just won't get there with this approach. So we're moving through this model. We start having summits. Roadway Express has held over 50 summits in the last 3.5 years, 9,000 separate employees that have gone through. Our number is higher than that, but some people have gone through more than one. So we probably ought to have this summit thing down after having 50 of them and 9,000. But we continue to learn about that. I would echo some of the same comments that my colleagues have talked about here. That they can become transforming events. To sit in a summit where we have all stakeholders present with an equal voice. You know, I go to a summit, I sit next to one of our mechanics, one of our dock workers. We interview each other. When are we at our best? I'm telling him when I'm at my best as a president of Roadway. He's telling me when he's at his best fixing that truck to have it on the road safely for the people that drive it. It is a transforming experience. We have people that get up and they range from revivals to intense learning events, depending, I suppose, on where you are. Parts of the country have different flavors to it. But those summits unleash creativity. They unleash energy. And they help us to direct that energy toward the key business issues that we face. So it's important. So AI as a methodology of change for Roadway is a critical part of our business. We use it in two ways, though. We use it at our facilities to plan their future. We'll go into a local market, a local terminal at Roadway, and say, how can appreciative inquiry help the group of people in that terminal to understand their positive core, to understand their customer, and drive growth and improve profitability for that facility. Build their plan from the bottom up versus what is much more traditional and easier to do. Build it from the top down. And so we use that to plan at a local level. We also use it, as I heard Rodrigo talk about, for strategic initiatives. Last year, for instance, we recreated our selling organization. We felt we needed to approach our customers in a different manner. So around that strategic initiative, we brought together a couple hundred people, our best sales people in all kinds of jobs that interface with the customer, and said, let's co-create Roadway Express's selling organization for the future. And so we sat through that in 3 days. We hammered it out, and we implemented probably the biggest change we've ever took on in our selling organization in 75 years. And we did it in 2 months. And we've gone from a crisis in market share due to some factors I'll talk about in this acquisition to improving that growth rate from being down 10% to up 5% in our business. And we did that in 3 months. And that's tough for us to do in a business that's very mature and very competitive. A last comment, you saw this change network slide from a couple of days ago where you got to see some Roadway people talk about a positive change network, an accelerated change network. Dave Cooperrider first came to me and talked to me about that about a year ago and started talking about a parallel communications network inside our company. And I was like, right, Dave. Right, a parallel communications network, to unleash that energy, to accelerate change. But you know what? We're just getting started at that. And I know there was a flavor maybe on that video that we're some pioneer. We're not. We're just learning our way through this and saying, how can we create another network that speeds up change in a decentralized company with 25,000 people? I'll tell you a story that made us commit to that network. We had a summit in Southern California in one of our large hubs, one of those summits where we're planning the future of that Southern California market, so critical to a trucking company to grow in. And in the middle of the summit, we stopped it. We had a nationwide conference call of our change network. Sitting next to me at the table was one of our P&D drivers, a city driver, who serviced customers in Riverside, California. And he wanted to tell his story that day. He wanted to tell the people in a summit room, 350 people, and about 2,000, 2,500 people across the country on the phone listening to him, how he understood his customer's business. He understood Roadway's business. He made the connection to serve their needs and turn that account in from nothing to a $200,000 account. That's one employee, one line employee in Riverside, California. So as I'm sitting next to him, he has his sheet of paper, and he's a big truck driver, and his big paws are on this single sheet of paper. And he's telling the story, and you could not help but be affected, because what you saw his pride come through in what he does, you could hear a pin drop in the room. You could hear a pin drop amongst the conference call, which never happens across the whole country of Connected, about his experience, his pride in his company. And I guess my point is, right then we knew at Roadway that change network we have to keep working on. We can't let that go. Because when you see that energy, that pride, that involvement, that connection with people, as Dave talks about with that face-to-face human intervention, you can never eliminate your opportunities to expand on that. So we saw that network's important for us. Susie, if you want to hit the next one there. What tells me engagement is happening? Probably the biggest story I can tell you is Roadway was acquired last year. That's big news in the transportation business. We're a $3 billion company acquired by another $3 billion company who was our arch competitor. We like to say it's like, I won't say which team we were, but it's like the Yankees acquiring a Red Sox we like to talk about. So maybe that tells you what it was like. Difficult situation. Now, we've also have a strategy when we became a part of this new corporation that we bought off on, that we thought could work. But it was not very easily understood by Wall Street, by our customers, and you know what? It wasn't understood by our employees. So when we went into last year, we went into a tailspin. We were losing market share because of the uncertainty around Roadway Express. What's going to happen to this company and the business that's been around for 75 years? What's going to happen to us? Well, we responded to that. This year, our results are improved 150%. And I mean by that operating income for a very large company. And it's because of, in my mind, the investment in appreciative inquiry and the investment in our model of engagement that allowed us to handle a crisis, to battle our way out of that, to rally 25,000 people around that, and turn that from something that I bet all 25,000 people thought was a negative into a positive to build their future. That told me more than anything that this process of engagement, this model of engagement and appreciative inquiry works. It just works, and that helped us. What else tells me, as a president of the company, what engagement is happening? I see employees taking ownership in many ways, employee involvement in planning. We're a unionized company. 18,000 of our employees are members of the IBT, the Teamsters. So whatever your mind could wonder to with traditional labor management, heads knocking, and planning, where we're focused more on seniority issues and what positions people can bid and jobs they can hold. Our answer to that is educate our employees about how do we build our schedules to serve our customers. And it has unleashed a real torrent of cooperation in that way, because it's built on our customers who help us grow the business, and that's the only thing that really ensures the future of anyone in a company, especially in a trucking company. So that employee involvement's important. One more story on this, internal benchmarking, I'll tell you. We had some people, one of our facilities, that went way out on a limb and created a new productivity system, and it was a home run. And that doesn't happen. We improved productivity in that facility almost 15% in the span of 4 months. What would you do if you had to think of that? What would a company do if they had one place that perfected a production system? What would you do with that? You would shove it in every one real quick. We didn't do that. We took that terminal and put them in front of upper management and mid-management and had them tell the story of what they accomplished. Actually, it happened at Case Western. And they told that story, so we had mid-management and upper management that came in and spoke about that production system. And that's all we did. I didn't send out a memo that said we're going to have this production system tomorrow. I wanted to badly. but I didn't. Yeah, Bob's right. Sometimes you just got to get the heck out of the way. But we let that grow. We let facilities learn the story. We let that facility share its story. We let people just visit that facility and see what was it like, what happened. We now have half the company in a year on that production system, and it's forming the basis for what we call the Roadway Lean system, which would be a manufacturing system, perhaps like Toyota's manufacturing system, well known across the country. Well, we have the Roadway Lean system that was spawned out of that type of environment that we are close to implementing across the company. But we had a little patience with it, and that's never easy in this business to have that patience. Good. Susan hit another one there. What are our challenges? As I move ahead here, I think you see that a decentralized company, different readiness levels at different locations. Somewhat of a paradox there for us. We want creativity, we want entrepreneurship at 350 places across the country, but we want change. We want fast speed of change. We want best practices to be implemented quick, and it's always a balance. It's always a struggle, where you go with that. And so systems change in a decentralized company, I think, is difficult, and that's our challenge. Another one, 70-year history of command and control. 70 years of being pretty darn good at it. But we have to change that. And that presents a challenge that I could talk about for a long time, and I'm sure we'd have a lot of discussions there. Finally, support from the IBT, from the Teamsters. In our model of engagement, we recognized at the base of that, we had to have a shared process with the union and our employees who are members of that union and employees of the company. And that is also a challenge. It's a challenge at a local level, challenge at a national level. And we use and invite and bring along that leadership of the labor organizations in appreciative inquiry summits. And it helps. And it's important to do that. They're a part of that system. Susan, one more. Dave asked me what would I say to other CEOs. I don't know that I can say anything to these three. I think they've got a pretty good handle on it. But from my perspective, I guess unwavering commitment from the top is important. I'm fond of saying that we bet our company on our EEFB strategy, on our engagement strategy. When we suffered last fall from poor results and being acquired, we were somewhat in a crisis at that point. We almost had an identity crisis, kind of strange to say for a 75-year-old company where we were. But right away, we were asked, well, what about these summits? These are a lot of money. When we have a summit, we spend a lot of money bringing people in, but we also spend a lot of money changing our network to stay fluid for our customers. We can't shut that network down. So our response to that was, when asked about that from our new parent, was, you know what? We're not going to keep doing these appreciative inquiry summits. We're going to invest 50% more in these appreciative inquiry summits. We're going to hold more summits next year. They gulped. They looked at that, and we convinced them. And that's what we did. So this last year, we've had more summits, put more people through an appreciative learning environment, put more people closer to that path of being engaged in the business, and it's helped us a lot. When we were acquired by Yellow Corporation and became Yellow Roadway Corporation, in fact, we were able to convince them to build our strategy through an appreciative inquiry summit. We brought all the companies under the new Yellow Roadway company together into a summit where we built the strategy of the whole corporation. We frankly were the acquired company, and we convinced the acquirer to use appreciative inquiry to build that strategy going forward. And that was a big event for the people at Roadway, and a pretty shrewd move by the CEO of our corporation to see the power of that and let us go down that path, even though Roadway Express was the company that used appreciative inquiry. So it was an important event from us, so that commitment at the top is important. Consistent, powerful messages is one thing I spend a lot of time on in terms of key success factors. You can never stop breaking down the learning from appreciative inquiry, the learning from the engagement process, and easy to understand messages that connect to your business. It requires constant work, and you never can stop at that. You have to always relate it to the key business issues, because guess what? Those change. The factors you face, the conditions that you're up against, the markets you participate in, the competitors you're up against, change, and you have to be fluid to react to that. We have to keep developing leaders at all levels. That requires a company that's committed to education. There's no two ways around it. If you're not committed to that, you won't develop leadership. Benchmarking and the power of storytelling. I guess we all wake up today and read the USA Business section that talks about storytelling. We've had a few conversations at Roadway that I amaze myself that I'm sitting in the room talking with Dave about storytelling is an important initiative for us, but somehow we work through that and try to do better at it. Preparing frontline and mid-level management for us always a challenge, because they're probably the most threatened when you try to empower your entire workforce, and you have to recognize that. And finally, I guess you have to be comfortable with a little ambiguity. You have to even encourage a little chaos, which is usually not the friend of big business. Order is a good thing at times, but you have to be able to foster a little bit of that and see where it takes you. So thanks for letting me tell the story of Roadway, everyone.
I
don't want this ever to be finished, and the whole notion that it's a way of living and it's a way of leading, it's a way of being with people and the kind of organization that you want to build. And you know, as I've observed the leadership in the summits that I've seen, one of the high points for me is seeing not only these folks, these leaders, engaging at the tables and taking part and so on, but it's fascinating to see how leadership really happens in the collectivity. I often wonder myself as I see the way Bob is engaged and the way Rodrigo and the way Bob Stahl is engaged. I mean, some of the most thrilling moments I've had is seeing the 300 people and seeing this CEO or president so intimately connected with everyone, where you could just feel the heart-to-heart, the passion, the visceral connections. And I've come away just, you know, every once in a while and start saying to myself, how can leadership happen if you don't, if you can't lead without people? You can't lead without, and so I often wonder, like, organizations that don't get people together. They get people together in large groups maybe to do presentations, but leadership can't happen that way. And so sometimes when I talk with some CEOs for the first time about appreciative inquiry, they think that it's an abdication of leadership, potentially, an abdication of authority and so on. And it's just the opposite. You can't lead unless you're in the heartbeat of the people. And that's what I see, and that's been the most thrilling moments, like just spontaneously standing up, and all of a sudden, just the brilliance of comments and vision and leadership comes forward, and you can just feel the connection. The whole group is together, and I guess it takes courage. Maybe that's why it doesn't happen as much as we'd like to see. But you can't lead unless you're in with the people, and that's what all of you do. Yeah.
Thank you.